for that. Every town, of course, has something or some place that residents can recall fondly, whether it's a statue, a park, or even a building. These things make up our history and the community around it. We once again turn our eyes to Sidney, Montana, after Ren Wadsworth traveled there last week and spoke to residents reminiscing about the Sidney sugar beet factory and how it grounded their community.
Whether you worked in the factory for decades or only called Sidney home for a few years, Sidney Sugars had a way of touching and connecting everyone around it.
I mean, when you're talking about the impact of the factory, you have to realize that, like, my children think the clouds are made by the factory. Like, the factory means a lot more than just producing sugar.
The Sidney Sugars sugar beet factory stood for nearly a century, and generations grew up with the landmark just miles away. But even those who only spent part of their lives in Sidney found themselves swept up with the factory and its sugar beets.
See, I used to go over there from about 2000 to, I'm going to say 2008, and in the summertime, and work with kids that came from Texas. And they worked in the fields hoeing sugar beets, and we used to help them get credits and stuff at school in the evening.
Others who grew up in Sidney have much deeper ties to what may appear to others as just an old plant.
I just lost my mom, and it's been about 2.5 years. And that was a big connection I had with her. You know, she worked there and she was a single mom raising me, and Sidney Factory was kind of home for me. You know, it was just kind of a connection I had with her. Now I feel like I'm losing another connection. You know, she's getting further away from me.
And for those who have worked at the factory for a large part of their lives, they feel like they are losing part of themselves and a constant in their community.
The factory's always been that one place that you know you could count on always being there, so that if you needed to, you could go back. And now it's like, what do we do? I don't know.
Even though the factory is still standing, the people of Sidney say they are treating the closure like a death in their family and mourn the future it will not get to have. Ren Wadsworth, Nonstop Local.